Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Dr. Bakari K. Lumumba of LumumbaSpeaks.com. Back once again in conjunction with the Line Network, the Pan African social media extraordinaire, and the home of African centered news and information. And we're back to really have a show on a very serious topic. Shout out to Mr. Sandman. I see your comment there. Where we're going to examine the Carmelo Anthony trial, not to be confused with the former NBA All Star Carmelo Anthony, but this is the Carmelo Anthony trial that's taking place in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, particularly Frisco, Texas. Many of you may be unaware, there was a uh, deletion of a young man by Carmelo Anthony. We're going to kind of get into the weeds, but before we get started, just make sure you like, subscribe, follow, and donate. Of course, you can donate via the Super Chat, Venmo, and of course, Cash App here at Lumumba Speaks in conjunction once again with Line Network, the Pan African social media extraordinaire, and the home of African centered news and information. So, if many of you may be unaware that the Carmelo Anthony trial, there was a incident that took place, I believe, at Centennial High School in Frisco, Texas, at a track meet. Um, Carmelo, the track meet was delayed due to rain. I ran track before. Typically, if there is rain, you wait under a tent. Carmelo went to another team's tent. Is from what I've read, his team did not have an actual tent to provide shelter from the rain. He was approached by two gentlemen, uh, and they were much larger than him. Okay, and there's a couple of things we're really going to look at here, but they were much larger than him. One, I believe, they both were linebackers on the football team. One was 6'1", probably about 215. The other was 6'2", probably about the same amount, 210, 215. Carmelo Anthony, from what I've been able to gather, is 5'8", 140 pounds, so substantially smaller. There have been a number of protests, even counter protests. There was a Protect White Americans protest. At the protest, I saw that some was arguing that he should be strung up. Right? We know that there was also a case where Carmelo's bond was reduced to 250,000 dollars. And the judge was information was put out on the internet. So there's been a lot of information. There's been a lot of misinformation regarding Dr. Carmelo Anthony and his family were living the high life based on all the donations they received. I know they received over $500,000 donations for criminal defense, which I think is a good thing. But I think that really what I found, I want to get your thoughts on it as well. If you're watching on Twitter, would love for you all to tap in here on YouTube at Lumumba Speaks of Line Network. My concern so far with the trial, two things. One, some people are trying to make it about race. Others are not trying to make it about race, particularly Carmelo's family. They have argued or averred, as well as his defense attorney, that this issue is an issue of self-defense, not an issue of race or racial animosity. The second issue I look at is the jury. As I've stated before on my platform, I've had a jury trial before. One of the most important aspects of any criminal trial is jury selection. We know we even covered that when we discussed O.J. Simpson's trial when he transitioned. The jury is all white. That is my concern. I listened to or watched court TV this morning. One of the things they argued is that because the jury is all white, and they struck the African American or black jurors that were previously part of the jury pool, the prosecutor did, that this could be reversed on appeal if the trial does not. They don't get the verdict that they're looking for. Excuse me. So that is a concern. My concern, of course, is the jury. And then even some of the language that was used by Carmelo leading to the incident. Of course, he was approached by the two gentlemen or young men. One of the individuals did push him. He said, "Hey, if you push me, it's going to be a problem." The guy put his hands on him, and he of course, struck the young man with appears to be a knife. And the young man, of course, succumbed to his injuries before, I think, shortly after he uh, made it to the hospital. So there's a couple of concerns I have. One could argue, and please excuse the background, family. I'm in the middle of moving, but we're quite all right. that maybe he used excessive force in terms of self-defense. I'm quite sure his defense attorney would argue that these gentlemen or young men were much larger than him. One was 6'1", the other was 6'2", 215 pounds. Karmelo was 5'8", 140 pounds, which would be understandable. Some would argue that a reasonable person would respond that way. My concern is that there's an all-white jury. And as a result of there being an all-white jury, my belief, and this is a concern that I have, they may not be, and we know this, whites are less likely to see Black people as victims, even in cases where they have been victimized. We know this, the history of this country, of course, substantiates that. That is my concern. I'm going to keep a close eye on the case. This isn't a situation where I really want to do a show to sensationalize what's going on, but I am happy that the Black community came to his defense, right, in terms of raising money for bail, raising money to have, of course, a great legal team, right? Defense attorney, anyone who's been involved in the criminal justice system knows that even if you're innocent, you need a good lawyer. This is a reality, right? But that is my concern. Please tap in. I believe the link is in the description. I'll put the link in the chat momentarily. If you're on Twitter, definitely you could tap in here of course, on YouTube at Lumumba Speaks of Equaline Network. I'm even willing to put the chat link in the comment section on Twitter. My concern is of course, the all-white jury. As I said before, we know there's a long history in this country of non-Black people not viewing Black people as victims, even in a situation in which they have been victimized. It doesn't appear, of course, based on what I was able to review, that Karmelo was looking for trouble. Once again, he went to the tent because his team did not have a tent to shelter them from the rain. He was much smaller, and he was physically attacked by the two young men before he sought to defend himself by using a weapon. A reasonable person may argue that because he was much smaller than them, he may have felt the need to use a weapon to protect himself. Karmelo did state that that he was responsible for the fatality, but he argued, of course, that it was self-defense. They said that he was very emotional at the time of him being detained. Some people would be, maybe some people wouldn't. But that my concern, of course, is the all-white jury. So I'm going to put the link, of course, in the chat, family. Then I'm going to share the link on Twitter as well, or X, formerly known as Twitter. Get your thoughts on it. But from what I was able to review from, of course, Court TV, Fox News, etc., the argument that was being made was that there would be a need that if he was found guilty, that there will be possible grounds for an appeal based on the fact that the non-white jurors that were part of the jury pool were, of course, removed. So that is something to keep an eye on. I do definitely have a concern with the case, but we will see. But I definitely want to hear from you all. Have you all been following the case? What are your thoughts? Put a 1 if you're aware of the case. Put a 2 if you are unaware of the case. But my hope is that, of course, he will be exonerated. At the very least, he will receive a lesser offense. I don't know if there's a situation in which he is aware, if he has the possibility, because they haven't charged the jury yet in terms of what they will be possibly able to convict of. But my concern would be, is there a situation where he could be convicted of a lesser charge, right? I personally know of a situation right here in the great city of Dayton, Ohio, Gem City, where there was an individual who was actually physically accosted by two gentlemen. They actually chased him down the street. And then, of course, he stabbed someone as well to defend himself. Individual ended up transitioning, and then he was able to plead to a simple assault. The time served in the county jail, and he was released. So I think maybe that's the best case scenario if there is not an acquittal. But I don't know if when they get to that stage, that point in the trial where they're charged, the judge charges the jury to come back with a verdict, if there's a possibility of conviction of a lesser charge, if they don't find him innocent. But my concern, once again, is the fact that there is an all-white jury, and this is a case where, of course, the victim is white, and the defendant is black. And we're there in the state of Texas, and really anywhere in America, we know that there is a concern for if we receive true justice or even equal justice, as some would say. But the major issues we do know is that, unfortunately, in this country, when black people have been victimized, we tend to not be seen as victims by the dominant society for a myriad of reasons, but particularly because of anti-black racism. But once again, the major issue for me is that there's an all-white jury. So if you could tap in, be part of the conversation, put a 1 in the chat if you're familiar with the Karmelo Anthony case, put a 2 in the chat if you're unfamiliar. And once again, from what I've researched, this trial is going to take about 2 weeks, and they're actually holding trial 6 days a week. So only day they're not in chambers or not in a courtroom is on Sunday, but Monday through Saturday, they're actually having the trial. And so if I remember correctly, Karmelo is out on bond. He is not being detained in the county jail. He is out on bond. And so my hope would be that if his defense attorneys, I believe they've probably been able to hire the best because of the GoFundMe, the amount of money they raised, that if he is found guilty and he's not acquitted, he will be to remain out on bond while that appeal has been filed. And of course, this is a TV show, but I recall watching the episode of Law and Order. If anyone knows me personally, they know Law and Order is my favorite TV show, where a defendant had a high-powered attorney, and they knew they was going to lose the trial. So they went ahead and already just started filing the appeal. Okay, very good. They say he's out on bond. They started filing the appeal because they know that their client was going to be found guilty. And once the jury found him guilty, they had the appeal already filed like 5 seconds afterwards, right? And then, of course, he was able to remain out on appeal pending out on bond pending the appeal. But definitely, I hope you all could tap in, be part of the Killer Bob 1200. Hope you could tap in, be part of the conversation, share with us your perspective. And do you believe that the all-white jury may be a major issue regarding if he's found guilty or if he's exonerated of course, they're leaving this young man without just cause. So once again, the link is in the description, link is in the chat. If you're watching on Twitter, I'll put the link in the comments below the video. We'd love to hear from you all. Definitely get your perspective. As you know, you're watching the LumumbaSpeaks.com Black Empowerment Initiative, where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black in conjunction with Beacon Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire, and the home of African-centered news and information. Brother LMA, who dribbles out of VA, appreciate you being with us this evening. I hope we're not having any technical difficulties today.
I hope not either. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you just fine.
All right, good, man. Yeah, man. I haven't been following this case too closely, but just like, just the headlines. I got to be honest. I have my doubts about young Mr. Anthony. We have not heard defense yet. We just heard the prosecution side. For me, without that, I mean, my issue is the use of force. Like, if the prosecution is saying that it was just like some shoving, and then he responded with a knife. Right. To me, I think that's going to be the hardest. Unless
the hardest sale, absolutely,
it's going to be the hardest sale. One of my frustrations is, and I hope is, there was this one gentleman. There's a video floating around. There's one gentleman who was in the court. He claims he was in the courtroom. He claims he saw the video, and he claims that there were 4 men that jumped Anthony, and then that's when all this happened. And I was a little irritated with that because he's the only person making that claim. Like nobody else is making the claim that there was, that he was being jumped, that he was being, So I mean, like I said, I'm just waiting on the defense to come out, because I mean, I'm hoping, not hoping, but obviously, racial issues aside, we kind of need justice to be served, right? So if Karmelo is guilty of what he is accused of, then yes, it's going to suck, and yeah, it's going to be, some folks going to have to eat crow, and it's going to be, a loss. But if he did it, then we have to be, we have to look at the evidence. Now, as a part of me, I'm hoping that, it was self-defense, but at the same time, it's just looking at it, it's going to be hard for me to get past the fact that it went from, and obviously, to me, I'm not too concerned about like him having a knife or not having a knife. Yeah, it sucks, but he had the knife. He got into the altercation. He stabbed him. I'm sorry. He poked him, and he poked him. Sorry about that. And it, from what I saw, it just looks bad for the guy. I can't. I don't have high hopes. I don't have high hopes that he's going to
be exonerated.
Like I said, I'm open to defense.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yes, sir.
Let's just say, for sake of argument, you are a juror. Would there be any weight that you would give to the fact that the individual was 6 inches taller than him and outweighed him by 75 pounds?
What gives me the weight is their ages, right? Because we're not talking about grown adults. We're talking about basically adolescents, right? Teenagers.
So Karmelo, at the time, 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
5'8", 140 pounds. The other young man was 6'2", 215.
Yeah. It's going to be tough for me. It's going to be tough because, one, I'm looking at it from my lens, but obviously I'm much older, and so, but I'm trying to look at it from their end. So, like, they can, not misconstrue things, but like, they don't have the world experience to know what's a threat and what's, the probability of a threat and of it not being a threat. The size difference, I can see the size difference being a thing if you're out in the streets and, downtown and it's a Friday night and people have been drinking. But at a track meet, I find it, honestly, I can't, at a track meet. Now, if this was, like I said, just out in the streets in a dark alley somewhere, I can, then you know what I'm saying? But at a track meet, I find it difficult to rationalize that level of escalation, even with the size difference. I don't get me wrong. Like if the defense comes out.
I'm just asking the question. I'm playing, of course, Black Devil's Advocate today.
Yeah. No, you're playing White Devil's Advocate.
Okay.
I'm joking.
That there were two gentlemen who accosted him, and both were substantially larger than him.
Now that gives me a little bit, but I would have to see the amount of, like, how, what I'm saying, I need to see the intensity of the scuffling, the intensity of the furniture moving before I can get a better feel for whether or not I think a knife would be necessary.
Understood.
And don't get me wrong, I got my fingers crossed that defense is going to be able to pull some magic out. There was a video somewhere. There was an eyewitness that said whatever. I'm hoping that's the case, but if it isn't, I don't see how.
I would think that based on everything I've been privy to, and of course the jury being all white, the best case may be. Yeah, that
all white jury is going to be,
right.
An issue, but
he gets a plea deal. And I think, and I guess I hate that this even happened. Right.
Yeah.
You would hope that if young people have some type of physical altercation, it doesn't lead in with someone no longer being here. I just want to put that out there, period. And I say this as someone who has teenage children. It just irrespective of race, right? I know what it's like to be a teenager. You go out, you're being able to experience the life of a teenager where you have autonomy, but you still are, able to be cared for by your parents. And your thought is, whatever I go do, I'm going to come home. That's just the reality.
Mm-hmm.
Right. For the young man, whatever I do, if I do get in a physical altercation, I'm not going to go to jail. Right. I'm going to be able to come home. That is my concern. And I would just hope that, because in my personal opinion, when I found out that the composition of the jury, he's more than likely not going to be exonerated.
Right.
That there may be a plea deal that he would hope is generous on his behalf.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but he's a little guy, so it's not.
Yeah,
If he goes to prison, if
yeah,
it's not going to be
yeah.
easy for him. He's behind the wall. We've already seen that there's been a racialized element of this case. Right,
Hmm.
they had a white protect white lives in America.
Yeah,
White Americans rally. There were individuals at the rally stating that they believe that he should be strung up in front of the courthouse.
yeah,
See a call for a return to mob violence and vigilante justice that is
yep,
representative of the nadir race relations of the turn of the 20th century. I just really wish this hadn't happened.
yeah.
I really
I,
do.
I really do wish, yeah, because it's just, and like I said, I think about even when I was a teenager. I mean, honestly, I feel like particularly for, I mean, most teenagers, but particularly for black, just black males, I feel like it's the most dangerous time of your life because you have the size, you have the strength, but you just don't have the world experience to be able to de-escalate,
Right.
to understand the situation that you're in. That what's what I'm looking for. What's appropriate? What's the appropriate amount of response? And like I said,
Right.
he's smaller. It could have been the case that he was smaller, that he felt threatened. You know what I'm saying? Because if he got jumped now, if that gentleman that made that claim that he was jumped and that we can see that video, to me, then that's when I can say,
It's
hey,
a no-brainer. Yeah.
it's a no-brainer, right? I mean, I yes, you don't want to see no one getting unalived under something like this.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like something short of that, I just can't see. I can't, between him saying that he did it. I mean, he didn't run, but I think they said that he cooperated with the police.
Yes, he did.
Now, they said that he may have thrown the knife, or he may have tried to ditch the knife, or maybe he dropped it or he ditched it, whatever. That's not going to look good. I just can't. With an all-white jury, I mean, he may get an appeal, but I can't see. I can't see him. Well, put it this way, I can't see an all-white jury with the evidence that we have now.
Yeah,
I can't see it.
Yeah,
in Texas,
it's unfortunate that we're wishing this to be the case. I stated before, you and I, we're lockstep here. We wish this never happened in the first place.
Yeah.
But this is a situation in which now he's ensnared by the criminal justice system, and he's in a position where one would believe that there's no one on that jury that would advocate for him.
Right.
Right.
I wouldn't bet on it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really tragic. Because like I said, I don't know the Metcalf boys. I don't know any of their. Even if they are, well, like I said, I'm not gonna, use, do the type of shit that other people do to us. You know what I'm saying? Like try to look in their past and see whether or not they deserve it or not. The point is, like, I don't know these people. I don't know. Like I said, the only thing that matters to me is that what happened under that tent. Like, was it the case that if it was raining, right? If it's raining and you're under the tent to like get from the rain, and that these other guys don't have a tent of their own. Because I believe
this what has been stated, that the other team didn't have a tent, and that he sought refuge, and then that they began to tell him, you got to get out from under here.
Yeah, and that's what I'm, because even I don't know if what's what I'm looking for, if the home team is supposed to supply the tents, or are you supposed to have a tent when you travel? So like basically you keep a tent with you, so that wherever you go, you're not relying on the home team. I'm not sure how that works, but I would like to think that, if it's raining, that you would have the decency. It's not like it's like bright and sunny and he's just under the tent just to be messing with you. It's raining, right? You know what I'm saying? You would think that there would be some decency to realize, okay, it's raining. There's a reason why he's under the tent. They don't have a tent, and just let it be, because I did, well, my track stuff doesn't even count because I did so little of it. But from my understanding is, I know some people, when they say, like, when it comes to track, the runners aren't as adversarial with each other, like say football or basketball, or those teams are very adversarial. But like in track, it's just like, since it's not necessarily head to head competition, it's just, we can just
It depends on where you're
okay,
at.
okay,
For example, in my high school, the Corner White High School for the Arts, our rival was Dunbar. We took umbrage with them no matter what the competition was or wherever we were at. Very quickly,
yeah.
Charlie B, I see you in queue. I need you to cam up in queue just so I can make sure you're not trolling. Then I could bring you onto the live. So if you could cam up in queue momentarily to verify that you are a real person and you're not trolling, then I will bring you into the live. All right, go right ahead, LMA, and then Sandman, you're next.
Uh, but yeah, I don't know what's the culture like the track culture in that area like, but you know, I I'm hoping for the best, but I'm understanding the worst. Go ahead. I'm done.
Go ahead, Sandman and Charlie B. If you're when you come on, I need you to make sure that you have YouTube off in the background so we don't have the um, echo. Go right ahead, Mr. Sandman. 215 in the building. What's good?
Hey, 215 in the building. Yo, you said you needed me to make sure that my microphone was off in the
No,
background,
no, I
or?
was talking to Charlie B.
Oh, okay, my bad. Yeah. Um, yeah, man, this is a crazy situation for the young man. I try to put myself. Oh, first, happy Pan African Sunday to you, Dr. Lumumba, and the other panelists that you have on the show today. This is an important topic. I'm glad you took the time to address it. You know, being that you're more of a more serious person in the Pan African media. Um, but yeah, this is a serious situation. We know the history of Texas, even though the state of Texas, happens to have the largest population of African Americans in the country. It it seems to have like more conservative thought processes that might not be congruent with the benefit of African Americans in general. It has a history of that, so hopefully this situation could get rectified. I was actually watching an interview earlier.
Go right
Hello.
ahead. Go right ahead.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was actually watching an interview earlier on YouTube that I thought. Have you know the guy Judge Joe Brown?
Yes.
Yeah, he actually addressed this issue in regards to the all of the jurors being white, and I thought that his comments were pretty insightful in regards to this situation. He claims that um, as a uh, as a judge, that he's had to litigate several capital cases or murder trials in his time, and a lot of times, but what pops up in situations like this, particularly, is when you run into a situation where you have to remove certain jurors from the case because some of their belief systems go against the whole litigation process. They might be leaning too hard in one particular area to have fair and impartial judgment when it comes to this, irregardless of race. And that was one of the things that he had to bring up. I thought was interesting, even though this one sounds a little sketchy. Also, what might come up as well is particularly for this case is the it's the onus of the district attorney to prove that Carmelo Anthony is guilty of what he's being charged of. So you can't say um, if the charge is him bringing a knife on school grounds when it's illegal to bring a knife on school grounds. Is that is that a charge? If he's not being charged for that, then they can't litigate him on that. Now, if the charge is premeditated murder, if he's not being charged with premeditated murder, then you can't charge him with that. The charge is, what is the actual charge that the defense attorney is trying to prove without a shadow of doubt that
You
Carmelo
mean accomplishment?
Anthony is guilty of, is Carmelo Anthony guilty of, and it's going to be the mission of the judge to make sure that the jurors on the case understand what the charges are, what exactly they are, and being able to unbiasedly determine whether or not Carmelo Anthony is guilty of those particular charges. So, I mean, each state is different. This is in the state.
But yeah,
So
he's
each,
been charged with murder. So that's the only charge that I see that he's
but
facing is murder.
okay, so what exactly constitutes murder? Is murder something that's premeditated, or
Well,
is it
so
something
that would be first or
reactionary?
second
I
degree.
believe.
I don't know if it's first or second degree.
Hello.
Yeah, I don't know if he's charged with the first or second degree, but it just says murder. Yeah. But Charlie B, you've been waiting patiently. Go right ahead.
Uh, Brother, first of all, I've written about this on Medium. I have a column that you can find on Medium.
Okay.
I think that one of the things that we need to keep in mind that in Texas, self-defense is defined as you have a reasonable fear of your life. Keep in mind that, again, we take it the size. He was approached by two guys, twins. And compared to Carmelo, those guys had him by a good 100 pounds.
Well, 75.
75. Okay,
Yeah.
75. We'll say 75. Combined, 75?
No, 75 apiece. One brother was
Oh.
6'2", 215. The other was 6'1", 215. Carmelo was 5'8", 140 pounds.
So if both of them approached him combined, they had him by over 100 pounds.
About 150.
Okay. So that, to me, if I'm a juror, that's a reasonable fear, especially if they accosted him first.
Yeah, but the jury's all white. That's the issue.
Then he's in trouble, brother, in Texas.
Yeah.
He's in big
The,
trouble.
the, the jury is all white.
He's in big trouble. He's in big trouble. The only hope that we can hold out for him is that the defense attorneys can get a retrial by saying it was an all-white jury and that he did not have a jury of his full
Yes,
jury
yes.
of his
Because
peers.
they removed the African American jurors that were in the jury pool
Yeah. So
during
obviously,
the Bordeaux process. So I
yeah,
think that would be the argument that would be made per appeal. It may be granted, because like we know anyone who's been around long enough has a working understanding of how the criminal justice system. Let's say here, he says, but he is armed in an unarmed school event, right? So that may be an issue. Hopefully, you could tap in and be part of the conversation. That is the concern. But if we're going to be prudent, right? It would the presumption would be that he would be found guilty because
guilty.
and you know this as well as I. Even if what you say is true, and it appears that it is based on everything that I've read, white people don't see black people as victims even when they have been victimized.
No, we don't have the luxury of being able to defend ourselves in white people's eyes. Let's just be straight up honest.
That's just historically accurate. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't see a good outcome for this in terms of that jury. We also have to keep this in mind. Texas has a death penalty. We have to keep this in mind that this young man's life is on the line. So we cannot let this rest. We must be vigilant. We must raise our voices that he gets a fair trial. Because I think in any black person on that trial would be able to understand the reasonable fear that this young man would have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm saying that as someone who at one point was not a physically a foreboding individual, right? I've shared with everybody here that, when I was in high school, I was about 5'4", 100-some pounds, 110, probably soaking wet, and my brother was 6'2", 210.
Yeah, same here,
Right.
brother. Same here. I was a nerd in high school.
Yeah.
So I get it. I get it.
And so
But
I would argue that if you have two individuals, we could say linebacker size, particularly for high school,
mhm,
you would believe that they're going to do you serious physical harm. That's
exactly.
reasonable. I mean, when my brother
Exactly.
would get upset with me, I believed he was going to do me serious physical harm. He was my brother, right? So,
Exactly. Exactly. And if I were the defense attorney, that's what I would harp on. That's exact. And then I would also bring up that the two brothers had a history of being bullies, especially the one that was stabbed.
mm,
That has not been brought up in the press.
right. Well, of course, that's not going to be brought up in the press, but I think that kind of speaks to LMA, where you said you don't want to dive into, of course, the victim's history, but it appears, of course, to Charlie B, and I appreciate you tapping in, Charlie B, that it may be needed and necessary for a
Yeah.
defense, like an adequate defense, that they do discuss that they have a history of course, being aggressors, or in situations when they don't need to be an aggressor. So
Exactly.
I think that's something that defense would have to do. I think also, I saw an episode, once again, going back to my favorite show, Law and Order, where there was a case where they talked about an individual said that he killed a man, deleted a man in self-defense. He was a basketball player. And so they showed that the guy he said he deleted in self-defense was 5'9", he was 6'8". And when they showed the size disparity, they said there's no way you could tell us that you believe this man was going to be able to physically harm you. Right. So I think if they show the size disparity, 6'2", 215 to 5'8", 140, you could show that a reasonable person, and typically in law, and I'm not a lawyer in any way, shape, or form, but I have friends who are, that they typically, per law, they go by the reasonable person statute. Would a reasonable person believe that these two individuals could do serious physical harm?
Exactly.
And Dr. Lumumba, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, and Mr. Charlie brings up a good point. I just looked it up. Texas is a stand your ground state. So,
it is.
So
Wow.
it could be the case that he has the right to use lethal force if he doesn't have to flee, and if they can make the argument that hey, that would be such poetic justice if he can get off on a stand your ground. We need that. But anyway,
I would use the term get off. I would say be acquitted.
If he could be acquitted, excuse me, I use the word. Yeah, you were acquitted. But if you could, because
it means you did it,
you did it. But yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, and I stand corrected. I misspoke. You're correct. Acquitted is the more proper term. But if for me, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying just by looking at what I've seen so far, I don't see how there's a lot going against him. But if Texas is a stand your ground and you can show, and like to your point, hey, they were aggressing against me, and okay, so now that size thing kind of comes into play now. If you think about it like that, so I don't know, he might have a snowball's chance in hell.
BGSIBMOR. I don't know what that stands for. I believe it may be an acronym. You say reasonable person we have left to 10. Of course, I would love for you to tap in and be part of the conversation. Some would argue, of course, if it's raining, it's heavy rain, he doesn't have any other shelter because his team doesn't have a tent, that a reasonable person may stay in the tent. But look, tap in, be part of the conversation. Don't know who you are, just need you to cam up and queue. And then, of course, you can be part of the conversation on the live just to make sure you're not, of course, someone who's trolling. But love to hear from you, get your perspective as well. Once again, as everyone knows, here at Lumumba Speaks, we believe in diversity of thought. So it doesn't matter if you're on the left, you're on the right, or you're right down the middle. We're here to have a conversation. We believe this is how you learn and grow, not only as an intellectual, but as a person, by, of course, having your perspective and views challenged.
Dr. Lumumba, I would also add that a reasonable person wouldn't have approached him if he wasn't bothering anybody in the rain.
True. Yep.
So I will say this, and I'm going back several years, 25 years actually, where I was a senior in high school, and I can recall being on the football team, and we had got back from practice, and we're and then we at the locker room, and then we're leaving the locker room where we dressed and we're about to go back home. And what ended up taking place was there was an individual from another high school who was in the student parking lot. And I remember one of the team captains like, "Hey man, you got to go. You can't. I don't care what the situation. You can't be here." Right. So I'm not saying that is right, but as a teenage athlete on a high school team, they tend to be territorial.
I understand what you're saying, but again, having had friends who ran track in college and high school, track athletes don't think that way typically.
Yeah, and
Typically,
yeah, and I
but
also I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah, I
Go
was
right
just
ahead.
gonna add. Yeah, I was just gonna add that. Yeah, I also played high school football, and I played college football as well. And I never, and in my time, playing sports scholastically for the institution that I attended, I don't recall ever having to uh, clash with other students from other schools, during a track meet or anything like that.
Well,
Typically,
Mr. Sandman, that's because you ain't had no game. You know what I'm saying? You from the
don't
Keystone
say
State.
that,
Ain't, ain't
brother.
nobody
Don't
ain't no
say that.
athletes
no,
out
that
there
ain't
from Philly.
true.
I know what it
Don't
is.
say
You ain't
that,
had no
brother.
game. That's why you
That
wasn't
that
putting in
ain't
the
Don't
true.
work.
I
say
was I was I was all conference, baby. I was in the newspaper doing my
Listen,
thing,
you
shaking
was
and moving.
all conference in the junior leagues. Now I'm messing with you, man. Go ahead.
Nah, man, I was shaking and moving, man. Some of the guys I was all conference with, they made it to the league, baby. And yeah, and I was tussling with them big guys. But normally, um, track athletes, a lot of times, these high school athletes, they'll play multiple sports. And I was kind of surprised that Anthony wasn't also a part of the football team as well, because
He
a lot of
was. He
times.
was.
He
Oh,
was,
he
yeah.
was.
He
Yeah,
was.
because a lot of times what happen is if you want to become a better athlete all around, you'll run track so that'll improve your skills on the football field as well. So I'm not even sure if Anthony had already had a run in with these kids before in the past. But I think the key to this particular situation is that um is that normally a district attorney isn't in the business of losing cases. So if they're going to bring up a charge of first degree murder, what is it, first degree murder or second degree? Do you know?
We don't know. We
Oh,
don't know.
okay.
It just said murder. I don't know if there's
It
It
that
just
just
said
charge.
murder.
it
But
just says murder. No, typically they feel that they have somewhat of a case to bring up those charges. Otherwise, it would be the onus of the judge who's in charge of litigating the case to not even bring it up to trial, because the district attorney doesn't even have an inkling of enough evidence to bring those charges up against him, even if it would be tough for
well,
the district attorney or the prosecutor to bring these charges up against the kids. So they must have some sort of evidence. Now, how much
well,
evidence do they have is going to be tough for them to prove that. And being that, this kid, Carmelo Anthony, has, plenty of the funds to get the best defense attorney on his side to poke holes in the district attorney or the prosecutor's case, it looks like that, it might be in Carmelo Anthony's favor to be able to prove to the judge and to the jury that the prosecution cannot prove without a shadow of a doubt that Carmelo Anthony is guilty of what constitutes as murder in the state of Texas. Also, when I was a kid, uh, I wasn't, if I was a starter, so I wasn't in it. And there are kids who feel that they need to push around other kids to prove themselves to their peers that they are, quote unquote, this tough guy. But guys like that, typically those type of bullies are cowards, and they probably get pushed around and beat up most of the time anyway, without
Mhm.
you even having to use a lethal weapon against them. So my guess is, even for, I hate to like have to like spread dirt on that kid who lost his life's name, but typically if he is known for being a bully, he's probably not really a tough guy at all. He probably gets pushed around on the football field to begin with. For him to even try to like tussle with a 140-pound guy. I recall like on the football field, if a 140-pound guy got in the mix with us, man, he was lunch meat.
Right. Yeah. And Carmelo, he's been charged with first degree murder.
Mm.
So first degree. So they're arguing that this was premeditated.
That's bullshit.
That's
But
going to be
whatever.
hard to prove. That's going to be hard to prove, brother. That's why I think they moved the jury to that particular town. That's a predominantly white town.
Well,
And it's
well, you know,
very
when you're dealing
town.
with real quick, when you're dealing with a felony, you're tried by the county, not the municipality.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're tried. So let me ask, what metropolitan area are you in, if you don't mind sharing?
I'm in Jackson, Mississippi, if you don't.
Jackson, Mississippi. So what's the shout out to Jackson, by the way. I'm familiar with Chokwe Lumumba Jr. Okay,
I know Chokwe. I know Chokwe. I know Rukia. I knew Elder Chokwe very well.
Very good. So, and what is the Jackson is in, what's the name of it? Hines County?
Hines County.
So if you are charged with a felony, it would start off it just say you're charged with a felony in the city of Jackson. It would start off in Jackson Municipal Court, but then when you have the pre-trial preliminary hearing, it would of course then be bound over to the common pleas court. And so then the trial would take place in Hines County common pleas court. So yeah.
So that's okay. Oh boy.
Yeah, but this is one of the reasons why I always tell people you need to register to vote, because voter registration, jury pools are based on voter registration. They pull people to be jurors based on who's registered to vote. One of the benefits of the civil rights movement, I'm going to make a brief segue because we have a number of these nonsensical individuals who don't know what the principles are talking about when they talk about Black history, particularly the civil rights movement. Arguing the civil rights movement was they surrender, right? One of the things that the civil rights movement did was reshape the criminal justice system and eliminated all white juries.
That's true.
Right? So we got to make sure we put respect on our ancestors who fought and the elders who fought in the civil rights movement to make that change. So once again, you need to register to vote. Even if you don't even plan on voting, you need to register so that if there's a situation where someone's on trial for a crime that it appears there's a racial motivation, you could be the juror to make sure that either that person's found not guilty, that the jury is deadlocked, there's a mistrial, etc. Exactly. Very important to all my viewers.
Exactly. And
very important.
Exactly. Good. I'm glad you brought that up. But I don't see that brother getting a fair trial in the situation he's in right now. And that's something we need to make us think about, because he does not have a jury of his peers in terms of his elders. There's nobody that looks like him on that jury.
And of course, the argument that they make is a jury of peers are individuals who are law-abiding citizens in that particular county or municipality. But we do know there have been cases in the past where, because the jury, people were struck as an all-white jury, that they were able to successfully appeal. So that's his only hope if he's found guilty. And I'm quite sure that his defense attorneys are very good, and I cannot wait to see them present their case. Yes, absolutely. And shout out to the Magnolia State. I think you're the first brother from the Magnolia State to tap in. Hopefully you subscribe to the channel.
Brother, I've been watching you for a long time, believe it or not.
Okay, I appreciate it.
This is my first time actually coming forth because I know a little something about the case because I wrote about it.
Okay, and I write on Medium as well, so definitely you need to put your contact information for Medium in the chat. And very quickly, when I was in the Navy, I was stationed in Pascagoula, Mississippi.
Pascagoula, yes,
Yeah.
sir. I know
Yeah.
Pascagoula well, the Gulf
Yeah.
Coast.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Not
Shout
that
out
far
to,
from Mobile, not that far
yeah,
from New Orleans.
correct. Yeah, shout out to the Magnolia State. Absolutely.
Yes,
M.I.
yep.
Crooked letter I. That's how I learned to spell
Humpback,
Mississippi.
humpback eye.
That's right.
We
That's
call it Little Africa. We call it Little Africa.
absolutely. Absolutely. LMA, and of course, Sandman and Charlie B. Do you all believe, based on the facts that we have right now, we haven't even heard from the defense, do you believe that what that he guilty possibly is premeditated? I don't see it
No,
Yeah, the premeditation. Yeah, that's crazy.
They'll never prove that in my mind.
Okay.
Because to say that you premeditated the murder, now this is, I have seen cases, and I've been, like I said, I've been a reporter. I have seen cases where the prosecutor will say, well, the person may have gotten into an argument, they got into a fight, they left, they had time to cool off.
Yeah. And they
But
came back.
that doesn't seem to be the case with Karmelo. All of this took place under the tent.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order for him to say that he premeditated the murder, he would have had to plot. I'm going to go to this area, bring my knife. And by the way, if you're a track star, you know some track stars use knives to sharpen their cleats. That's a case. So that may have been the reason why he even had a knife on. But nonetheless, I don't see premeditation being proved. I think that's a good prosecuting attorney would have at least tried manslaughter, voluntary manslaughter, second degree. Right. Those cases, I would be worried. But again, we're living in Trump's world, bro. And Texas is Trump territory, and there's some very racist white folk in Texas. Just like there's some racist white folk in Mississippi. Just like there's some racist white folk all in America.
There are racist people throughout America. You know, as Malcolm X said, he said, stop talking about the South. If you're south of the Canadian border, you're in the South.
Yeah, he sure said that. Amen, brother.
I would say that in terms of it being premeditated, I think you can argue that all murders to a certain extent are premeditated because, for one, the kid did bring the knife to
No, you can't make an argument that all murders are premeditated. That's why there's premeditated. Then there is, and then there's second degree, right? Some murders are crimes of passion, right? So you can't make the argument that all murders are premeditated.
Well, the reason why I say that is because the way that the human brain works is it works on subconscious reactions. And he might not have premeditated in his head at that particular time that he was going to go to that track meet and kill someone. But at some point in his life, he had determined that if it came to the point that he had to defend himself in a lethal way, that this is the way that he would do it.
But that's not murder, though. That wouldn't be murder, though. I don't know that. That wouldn't be homicide. I mean, H-side, but not murder.
Right.
Yeah. See, that's the.
Very quickly, that would be analogous and I've talked about this ad nauseum on my platform. I am a practitioner of the Second Amendment, not just these arms, not just these guns right here, right? But actually, I have a collection of firearms. I carry my firearms on me. If I'm in a situation where I have to use it to defend myself, that doesn't mean that it was premeditated.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we have to even more reason to be extra careful. What do you mean? Hopefully, you could tap in and be part of the combo. But yeah, that just and I don't mean to just be off-putting, but I just think the argument you're making right here is wrong-headed.
Well, the reason why this is why I asked you what is the definition of murder. Because the definition of murder in a legal context in each state might be a little bit different, and I don't know, like first degree murder in Texas.
Something that was planned.
Okay, so if you were to go into the law book and look up the definition of murder, do you know exactly what it would say? Because we talked about this, in nauseum on your channel about like pulling up receipts, and there's a legal there's a legal constitute for what a murder is, and is clearly outlined in any legal book in the state of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm reading it now. In Texas, a standard murder charge is a first-degree felony. This involves intentionally or knowingly causing the death of an individual or intending to cause serious bodily injury and committing an act clearly dangerous to human life that results in death. Penalties are 5 to 99 years or life in prison and a fine of up to $10,000.
and that's the actual legal paperwork.
Yes, per the Texas Constitution and statutes.
Okay, per the Texas Constitution. And what is the code for that for a murder charge in the state of
Texas
Texas?
Penal Code, it says Texas Penal Code Chapter 19.
Chapter 19, penal code. Okay, so it's knowingly. So the exact words in that terminology is knowingly creating lethal harm. Is that what it says specifically?
Yes. A person commits criminal homicide if he intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, or with criminal negligence causes the death of an individual.
Okay, so recklessly or intentionally causes lethal harm to an individual. Do you
Causes the
think
death
what
of an individual.
causes a death of to an individual? Okay, so do you believe, without a shadow of doubt, that he was reckless or intentionally caused lethal harm to the person that passed away?
No, I do not.
So you don't think he intentionally killed him?
No.
Okay. So what do you think his intentions were?
To defend himself from two individuals that were far much larger than him.
Mhm.
And that was his only intention, was self-defense. It wasn't to lethally defend himself.
Correct. That is my belief.
Okay. So that's the if you were on the juror, that would be an open and shut case for you. But
I mean,
it would
and
be
the reason why I
for
say that is because of the size discrepancy. If I was 5'8", 140, and when I was 5'8", I probably was like 120, and I have two individuals who are 6'2", 215, accosting me, putting their hands on me. I say this before. My brother was 6'2", 215 when I was 5'8", 120, 5'4", 120. And I believe that he was going to cause me serious physical harm, even though he was my brother. And I would run like hell, literally, right, like a bat out of hell. I believe I believe that's reasonable. Now, if he
and
was
you
the
don't.
same size or he was similar in size to them, then no, I wouldn't say that.
So if you were to defend yourself against your brother, you would think you had to. It would be necessary for you to lethally defend yourself against your
No, I mean,
brother.
he was my brother. What I'm saying is, based on the size discrepancy, I knew that my brother could do me serious physical harm when he was upset, when he got mad at me. I knew that.
So if you were to defend yourself with your brother, would you defend yourself against your brother with a knife,
Well, I never
stabbing
defended
him?
my brother. I never defended myself against my brother because I always ran. But what I'm saying is, if the person was not my brother and it was two individuals, not one, I could understand someone using a lethal object to protect themselves.
Okay,
Texas
yeah. See, I
stand
think
your
that's
ground.
that's I think that's the gray area in this particular situation is there was this commensurate to the level of escalation. If he felt that he needed to defend himself lethally, or he just needed to defend himself on the level
Well,
of him being
the
attacked.
only argument the defense may make is that he believed that they could do him serious physical harm.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yep. Stand your ground.
We believe that I believe that these two individuals who are much larger than me, had 6 inches on me in height and 75 pounds of me in weight, could do me serious physical harm. That's it.
Yeah, and in the state of Texas, that will ride, but in certain other states, that might not be enough.
Well, it doesn't
happened in
matter about
Texas.
any other state. We're talking about Texas, and we're dealing with this jury.
Texas. Right.
LMA,
Well, that's the thing. If the district attorney feels that they have enough evidence to prove otherwise, then it'll be the onus on them to prove that.
Well, the district attorney, they don't have to. They could charge you with any crime for any reason at any time. They don't even have to have any evidence. They could just charge you because they want to use leverage to get a plea deal.
Yeah.
The reality of the situation is you're really guilty to proven innocent. And then you're talking to someone who's been charged with a crime before and who has gone through a jury trial before. Twice. I've done this twice. They can have circumstantial evidence and still charge you.
Yeah, but they're not going to waste the judge's time on a case that they have no chance of winning.
Yes, they will. And
yes,
I'm going to
tell
you why. Because most people, 95% of all cases end in a plea deal. 2, their job is to bring in income for what? The municipality that they work for. There's a great book on this topic called The Rich Get Rich and the Poor Get Prison. And they talk about that the criminal justice system is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Well, who wrote that book? I need to read that one.
I can't recall. It's 2 professors from the state of Michigan. One I think is at Eastern Michigan. The other I think is at Michigan State, and they are sociologists.
And who's paying the fee for this court case?
What do you mean? The taxpayers.
Oh, so the white people in this town are paying.
No, the county. The county. All the residents in the county that work pay taxes. That's
Okay.
who runs the criminal justice system in East County.
And another thing, if I may inject, you have to also understand that this is a high-profile case.
Yep.
This is an extremely high-profile case. It's a case of national prominence, and I've seen a lot of prosecuting attorneys take cases like this, even though they know they may not win the case per se, just to raise their profile to run for another office.
Yeah, it can help their career.
So that is something we also have to take into consideration.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And by the way, I dropped my link in the chat.
I saw it.
And I do follow you, I think, brother.
I appreciate it. I 100% do. But very quickly, family, if you're watching LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black Empowerment Initiative where we believe you could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black, in conjunction with Bequaline Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire, and the home of African-centered news and information. You're here with Dr. Bakari K. Lumumba. Yes, I am an actual doctor. My dissertation defense is on my YouTube channel. If you go back to September of 2024, you get in the weeds, you could find it. So I am an actual doctor. I'm not Cheyenne Bryan. I'm not a grifter. But we're discussing a very serious issue this evening, and that is we're examining the Karmelo Anthony trial. If you've been under a rock, if you've been on another planet, we're examining the trial of Karmelo Anthony. This was an incident that took place in 2025 in Frisco, Texas, where he poked, as LMA so eloquently stated, a white competitor, a track competitor. They were under a tent. It was raining. His team did not have a tent to protect them from the rain. The argument we believe that Karmelo made is that it was in self-defense. Actually, he has made an argument, and the trial started, I believe, on June 1st. And so the trial is taking place 6 days a week. So they're going Monday through Saturday with only Sunday off. Of course, I believe they are sequestering the jury. And so tap in, be part of the conversation. If you're on Twitter, the link to the conversation, if you want to tap in, be part of the convo, is, of course, in the comment section. Then, of course, if you're watching on YouTube, the link's in the description, link's in the chat. Sister Carrie says not Dr. Umar either. Well, he is an actual doctor. So, of course, I've discussed on a regular basis. Of course, some of the issues I take with Dr. Vaughn, we used to converse on a diurnal basis. I can argue at least a weekly basis. We don't talk anymore because of his behavior. His antics are unbecoming of a public figure, particularly a black public figure, the one that fancies themselves as a Pan-Africanist. But he is an actual doctor. So I have to give him credence there. I've actually read his dissertation. It was actually pretty good. I got to give him props. Once again, we're back. Any thoughts? Brother LMA, Santa May, and Charlie B.
Brother, I just say as black people, we need to watch this case. We need to make sure that we do not let this all-white jury get away with railroading this brother.
So let me ask you a question. How could we, as non-jurors, prevent that from taking place?
Well, I think one of the things we can do is put pressure on the spotlight on that case. A lot of times, a lot of black men get railroaded and nobody says a word. Nobody. So the more scrutiny you put on this case, the less likely it is that they will not deny him an appeal. That's my point.
Okay.
We have to let the world know we're watching and we see what you're doing, as my grandmother used to say. I see what you're doing.
Understood. Brother LMA. If you're still dribbling down in VA, you know what I mean?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. So, like I said, I still got my concerns. I'm waiting to hear the defense. But in terms of the rest of us, I think, like I said, this being a high-profile case, and temperatures are rising. Kind of like yourself, you might want to get on that two-way so that just in case somebody else tries to, take their frustration out, their racial animus out on you, that you got a way to defend yourself. So, and also, even going to that point, I think that we just need to understand that even moving forward about escalation and use of force. Like I said, I don't know the young man's defense, but once it comes out, but I think there's a question that, you need to understand appropriate use of force and escalation. But like I said, make sure you go on that two-way because after this case, you're going to see a lot, because you got a lot of people like Chud the Builder floating around and all of his acolytes. And I can definitely see a situation where, a lot of Western Eurasians think that it's okay to start antagonizing Black people, African Americans. And I just want to make sure that everyone is prepared for that mentally and make sure you get your ducks in order. So one thing, this is not off topic, but attended. Make sure if you're going to carry, make sure you think about carry insurance, and that way, you can be ready for whatever comes your way. That's my 2 cents.
Overstood, Mr. Sandman.
Yeah, and I would just like to say my heart goes out to the Karmelo Anthony kid. I mean, I'm sure, or I'm not sure, but I believe that if he could go back in time at the beginning of this situation, I don't think he would have brought that knife to that school on that day, because who wants to go through this? I mean, it's just another day of going to school, going to your track meet. And I understand that you have to defend yourself, but who wants to have to go through all this crap of dealing with a murder case? And even if you do win, like your name is tarnished. Everywhere you go for the rest of your life, you're going to be known as the Black kid in Texas who killed some white kid with a knife at a track meet. And it's just a sad case to have to go through all that. But as for all of us, I believe that this is a case of a state like Texas and a state like in a lot of these states in the South, whether it be Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, I believe, Georgia, and even Florida might be similar. Whereas though there's stand your ground laws, and we've seen on multiple occasions of that one kid in Florida who was killed by that white guy or Latino guy. I forgot his name.
Just
Who
use the
who won
term
that
delete.
case?
Just use the term deleted.
He or deleted, yeah, by that white guy in Florida. I forgot his name. Off of the stand your ground laws. So if we're going to go off of stand your ground laws, then yeah, Karmelo Anthony was in his right to protect himself lethally based on the law as of how it's constituted now. So this should be an open and shut case for Karmelo Anthony, and he should win.
Yeah, but speaking of, there is a similar case that took place in Texas where a European individual or individual of European descent stabbed a Latino person, and I think he was acquitted.
Mm.
So this is going to be a very interesting case because, again, all of this is in the piece I wrote. You can see it. You can read it. This is going to be a very interesting case. But I think what LMA said something very important, that there are European Americans going around antagonizing Black people. And something, brother, Dr. Lumumba, I want you to look up. Accelerationist white supremacists. I need you to look that up. Because there are a group of white supremacists who are trying to do things to spark a race riot. I have a piece on Medium that talks about that. I think that's what's behind a lot of these mysterious hangings that you're seeing with Black men and Black women.
Okay, I'm going to read the definition. I just looked it up. He states white supremacist accelerationism, often called militant accelerationism, is a violent extremist ideology. Adherents believe modern democratic societies are irreparably corrupt due to multiculturalism and globalization, and that deliberate acts of terrorism, infrastructure sabotage, and violence are necessary to cause societal collapse and establish a white ethno-state. Yeah, so this is the modern iteration of white supremacy. White supremacy is gaining attraction in extremist spaces in 2010s, particularly neo-Nazis like James Mason's siege essays of the 1990s. Accelerationist adherents generate online propaganda that venerates past far right killers and encourages people to emulate them, as well as manuals and other materials designed to provide guidance on targets and tactics. I know this is true. I've had the luxury of attending going to a gun and knife show. And when I went to the gun and knife show, they were selling T-shirts that Martin Luther King in the crosshairs, and they were selling like hotcakes. They were selling manuals on how to make homemade bombs. Right. So this is a reality. While people are out here twerking and strolling to the polls, this is what we're really up against. Yeah, and a brother says no, he wasn't acquitted, he was charged. So okay, appreciate you providing that correction.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is what we're up against. These are individuals who want there to be a race war, so they could get us out of here. They could clap us like Birdman and Clips. Right. So, and this is why I take such a string umbrage with the idiots who are on social media promoting nonsense to our people. The Shannon Sharps of the world, the Sukianas of the world, the what's that dude? He was in that movie. The Nick Cannons of the world, or the pseudo intellectualism of David Banner. You're not saying or doing anything to actually help our people for the actual real threat that we're facing.
By the way, you spoke of David Banner. I know Lavelle Crum.
Yeah, he's from Mississippi. Yeah.
Yeah, I know him. I know him personally.
Yeah.
One day off camera, I'm going to tell you some things about him.
Okay. I'm gonna put my number in the private chat.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me know if you got it.
Yeah, I
So
got it. Hold on.
okay, so this is what we're up against, right? And like as I said, and I've stated this on my platform since I began. I started my platform, I believe, in 2020. The enemies of African people are we have internal and external enemies,
Mm.
and we have to be cognizant of that. As we like to say, not all skin folk are kinfolk,
Yeah,
and we have a
yeah,
number of
yeah. That's
individuals in our
info. That's
community
info.
and public social spaces who try to finagle and represent themselves as if they are a thought leader. These are real issues and concerns. As you stated, there are individuals going around trying to create physical altercations with Black people so they can find a reason to delete us. We saw what happened in the case of the Asian man that killed the young Black boy,
Working on a piece on that right now.
right?
Yeah, that was
We
bullshit.
understand what's going on here. This is a reality. And as you stated, Brother Charlie B., per white supremacist America, we don't have a right to defend ourselves. We've all seen the movie Rosewood. They run up in dude's
Mm-hmm.
house for no reason, and
Mm-hmm.
he shoots them. Hey man, we having a birthday party. Then what they say? Send the militia down here. We got 2 white men dead. Because in this country, the only lives that matter are what? White lives.
Yep.
The one life that has been indispensable, and Dr. T. Hassan Johnson talked about this, brother BGS, IBMO, appreciate you, but Dr. T is a good friend of mine. We talk probably on a weekly basis. He talked about Black men face racialized violence or violent forms of racism more than anyone else. And what he talked about was, of course, when men were conscripted into the military service, who was sent to the front lines to be body catchers, to be
We
bullet
were.
Black men. It started in World War
Mm-hmm.
II, and then it continued on North Korea, Vietnam War, Desert Storm, etc. You're talking to a veteran here. I know that Black people only make up 12% of the United States population, but we make up 42% of all those killed, missing, and missing in action. We got to wake the
Mm-hmm.
faith up and really see what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Brother Charlie B, if you could put your Medium link on the live chat, Sister Carrie would like to read your information.
Okay. Okay.
Absolutely.
All
And
right.
I
Okay.
just followed you on Medium. So
Okay. All right. Let's see. Let me see. How do I put it on the live chat, brother? Just
yeah.
like I did the last time when I sent it to you?
Well, you sent it to me private, so you would just need to you could put it on the live chat on StreamYard, or you could do that on YouTube.
Okay, okay, YouTube. Okay, let's
Yeah.
see.
But
Do you
these are the issues we're up against, right? And we know Charles Dutton in the movie Minister Society, when he had a conversation, when he was having a colloquy with those young brothers, he said, there's a hunt going on and you're the prey. And we're not saying this, I'm not saying this because I'm trying to scare people, but these are the same conversations I've had with my son, with my daughter. It gets real out here. And you have to understand the world and the society that we live in. Whenever there has been real even perceived Black progress has been followed by periods of racial retrenchment. I give 3 examples and then I'm going to shut up because I know I'm monopolizing the conversation. The first example was post-Reconstruction. Post-Reconstruction was followed by the nadir of race relations and was anti-Black racism was at its zenith. We're talking about Rayford Logan, a Pan-African historian who taught at Howard University. He coined the term in his book Portrayal of the Negro from Rutherford B. Hayes to Woodrow Wilson. The second example of racial retrenchment would be post-civil rights Black Power movement. It was followed by the period of law and order, where Black people went from being one of the smallest to the preeminent group that was ensnared by the criminal justice system.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, post Barack Obama, we saw the rise of white nationalist hate groups and the extrajudicial killings of Black people. This isn't in theory, this is reality. Yeah. So we have to wake up. Internally, we have internal enemies and external enemies. We must wake up and truly understand what we are up against. Right? Because of Trump, right? And we know America's always been racist, but Trump has given people what many would consider a green light, right to express their racism openly and just say it's freedom of speech, First Amendment. We saw that with the guy down there in Nashville, right? He was going around, trying to pick fights with black people, and then when they would, verbally accost him, he would say, "Well, you're champing out." Now he's locked up, but the fact that he did this was again, he took the life of a black person, at least attempted to take the life of a black person. LMA.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah. I don't know if you were trying to avoid the guy's name, but yeah, he didn't unalive him, but he's getting attempted. I think he's recovering. I think he got shot in his stomach or something like that, but it missed. Right. I don't know but basically he's in the hospital.
Absolutely. So these are the issues that we're up against. So yeah. I think, and I'm going to do a show probably later this week on. Here in my hometown, there's been a number of shootings, and so a lot of people are asking, how do we solve this problem in terms of crime, black on black crime, or black fratricide. So I'm going to do a show on it, and I think a lot of people will be interested in what I have to say, but I think some people may even be a bit taken aback by what I'm going to say in terms of how one could address black fratricide in the black community. So I'm going to let you all close it out, LMA, and then of course Charlie B. I give you all final words, final thoughts, and then we will close it out.
Yeah. So for me, like I said, I'm waiting to see his defense. I'm hoping it's a good one. I do think that Texas stand your ground may come into play. I'm hoping the best for him because obviously I don't want to see him. I don't want this to happen to anybody because this is heavy for anybody, particularly an 18, 19-year-old. But at the same time, if, the defense is lacking and it appears that he did what he is accused of doing, then we just have to understand that we're going to have to bear that. We're going to have to bear that. But at the same time, we're going to have to be ready for the backlash. the backlash, because there's always one. If he goes, if he goes to jail, there's going to be a backlash. If he gets off, if he gets acquitted, there's a backlash. So we need to prepare for that. And just, like I said, the mask is off with, America was able to, we was able to put lipstick on this American pig probably for like the last 60 years. But now that lipstick is come off and now we are, it's not looking good. And this is going to be one of those cases that's going to be looming. The ramifications is going to cascade into the future for this case. So that's my thoughts.
Let me ask you this question: how can we prepare for the potential backlash if he's acquitted of the offense of first-degree murder? What can we do to adequately prepare?
This is gonna be a tough one. I've been thinking about this. Could be dash cams are definitely a must. Being able to just record your surroundings. Maybe figuring out a way that you can obviously just avoid any type of volatile situation. I was thinking about it just like, being able, even on my phone, I got a new phone that doesn't have this feature, but I used to be able to double press the power button and I can just go straight to my camera. Like I said, dash cams, you got to be able to just document everything that you do. You and I, like I said, we're on that two-way. So if you can't de-escalate, if you can't avoid it, that's what that two-way's for. And if you got the two-way, you better have some type of insurance that can cover your legal costs, should you have any. Obviously, I'm always about self-defense, never, any type of aggression in that sense. But yeah, that's just off the top of my head.
Over to it. Thank you. Charlie B.
I think Brother LMA is very much on point in terms of there will be a backlash, but Black people have always faced black backlashes. I do think that the Black community needs to come together and form some unity. I think we need to be prepared for self-defense. And I also think that we need to wake up some of these young people who are out here not understanding the full extent of the challenges we face.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate everyone for tapping in, being part of today's show. Until next time, family, y'all know what to do. Make sure you always bet on black. Peace.
Yes.
Before you go, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you for supporting the channel. And remember, here at Lumumba Speaks, we always bet on black. Peace.